Let's look at some more. I bet you never knew there were so many utensils out there. Ah, plastic. We got lots of plastic here. I'm going to show it to you. Here, here, and here. All right, I'm going to put it down here. Hopefully the other camera will get it. Kind of artfully arranged. Now you might think to yourself, well, Dr. Mike, you told me that plastic was no good. This is a different kind of plastic. This is polycarbonate plastic. This is between that consumer level plastic and industrial level plastic. And this is very, very durable stuff. This is the kind of stuff that can be washed and rewashed and used many, many times. No problem. It's designed for that. And down here we have a couple of different items. We have a couple of sets here. These sets, by the way, nothing on this little napkin here costs more than a few dollars, so it's all very, very cheap. But here we have a nice small set. I kind of like this, just small. And the advantage of this set is you have everything that you need in a nice small size. This is a larger size, which maybe would look nicer. Well, you know, it certainly would work too. Again, about the same price. I would probably lose this big spoon though. You can do everything that you need with this little spoon, and this just takes up space in your lunch bag and doesn't really have any function. The other thing about this big spoon is that it's just too big to get into things like yogurt containers. So go with these three, put this one someplace else. These are a couple of ingenious items, and these are called sporks. They're a combination of a spoon and a fork. This one is an all-in-one device. You have the bowl of the spoon here and some tines here. This is made out of Lexan, which is a brand name for a polycarbonate. This one here has the fork on one end. It has the spoon on the other end. It also has a little knife blade here. I think this is more show than function for the very simple reason that normally we have to take a fork and slice, right? So if the fork and the knife are in the same place, I don't know if you hold it down with your finger, but at least it's there. All of these items would work fine if you wanted to spread something like peanut butter, for instance. You can use the back of your spoon, but you're probably going to want some sort of a knife to go along with this to complete the set. Polycarbonate is made out of chemicals that some people think leach into the food and into your mouth and may have some dangerous effects. I'm not an expert in this area, but I would say certainly utensils have minimum exposure. I wouldn't worry about it too much. That's just my personal opinion. So I think these are really nice items. They're very lightweight, they're very strong, they're very reusable, and a good item to purchase. Let's see the next items, Will. Now you might wonder where you get these items. Well, the place where you get these items is you go into the picnic supply aisle or the camping aisle of your store, like a Walmart or a Kmart, or you go into the picnic or the camping area of your sporting goods store. And they have tons of these items. This is just a sampling of them. I like to collect stuff if you haven't noticed. But those are just a few of them, and really I've seen many other different versions of it. If you don't like using plastic of any sort, you can go with stainless steel. Here's a nice little stainless steel set. It has a little ring to hold it together. Of course, that ring detaches so you can get these different utensils out. I like this one because, again, it's very small, packs very well for those metal lovers. You can get all sorts of different versions. Here's another version. This one kind of stacks onto itself, and it even has a little bottle opener here. That works well, and it just kind of comes apart, if I could, like that. So you have your knife and your fork and all that. So that works pretty well, too. This is one that you see on Amazon and other places. It's kind of a combination. Fits in here. You have also a place for salt and pepper. I never like these kind of salt and pepper deals. They always seem to leak on me. I tend to like the packets better. But this has a very nice knife, a usable fork, but a teeny tiny spoon. I mean, you can definitely use it, but maybe a little smaller than you'd like. So those are three different ones that are of the stainless variety. Here again, go to any store, you can find it. Very inexpensive, a little more expensive than the polycarbonate ones. Let's move on to the next. Here's a fun little gadget. Put these over here. Have you ever heard of a hobo tool? This is a hobo tool. And I suppose it's because the hobos used these types of things during the Great Depression. I don't know if that's the case or not, but I'm just guessing. These are kind of combination deals that look like pocket knives. You open them up, you get a spoon, you open them up this way, you get a fork, they come apart, so you have a fork and a spoon, and here is a knife, and now this one doesn't have any other attachments, but it has a knife in here, so you're set for anything. I'm going to close it so I don't cut myself. But it folds up very neatly. They're very clever. These come in an endless set of varieties too. You can get these at the same stores that I've mentioned before, and really a lot of people make them. Now, I've never actually seen anyone use these eating a lunch. I'm sure people do, but they make enough of them so someone's using them, and it puts everything in a nice kind of compact thing. It might be a conversation type of thing on the lunch table, so certainly worth taking a look at one of these if you have an interest in a hobo tool. And I have the next item, Mr. Will. He's getting it. Okay. Now, the one thing that I have found very, very useful when it comes to packing a lunch, for me anyways, is to use a pocket knife. You think, a pocket knife? What's that? Well, I've got a bunch of them here. Here's 3 different ones. And they only have one thing that makes them common to the other, and that's that each one of these knives costs less than $3. In fact, some of them were about $1. So they're very cheap. These are not the types of knives that you would take on a backwoods hiking trip someplace. This is not the kind of knife that you would depend on because they're very cheaply constructed. They're made out of cheap materials, but they're absolutely fine when it comes to the simple uses that you'd put doing a lunch. And in fact, what do you use a knife for? Well, you use it to cut meat, use it to cut up fruit, you might use it to cut up a tomato, for instance, or open some packaging that you have. So a real knife, as opposed to one of those butter type knives, is very, very useful. Let's take a look at them just to give you an idea. And I don't have my glasses on, so no, that's the wrong end. Let's try this end here. Okay, we have this little tiny blade here. This has a bunch of stuff in it, but we're just going to talk about the knife. And then we have this big blade here. Now, believe it or not, all 3 of these knives would be perfectly acceptable for most tasks that you would use when you're going to pack a lunch. But they have different characteristics. This big one here was purchased for about $2.50 in a gas station in South Dakota. It looks very menacing, which is probably its biggest deterrent. So although this would be a great knife, you have a nice belly on it, it's very sharp, it's good at slicing and chopping. In fact, you could even do some little food preparation with a knife that's this size. But the problem is that it might be intimidating to some of the people around you. And that brings up an important point. Obviously, you're not going to give a pocket knife to someone where that's banned. So you're not going to give it to a kid in primary or secondary school where they'd be instantly expelled, even if they're just cutting up a piece of cheese with it. So you got to be a little sensitive. Where can you use these things? Be aware if they're appropriate or not in your particular venue. But this would be a great knife, probably better on the construction site than in the break room, but it would be very easy to use. This one here is a fake Swiss Army knife. These knives are not very good in quality. This one probably costs about $2 at a dollar store. My son here is telling me it was $1 at the dollar store, so $1 at the dollar store. It has a lot of other junk in it. Most of the junk doesn't work very well, but the knife, again, is perfectly adequate for the types of things that you would use in eating or even kind of cutting some stuff up for your lunch when you're at the lunch table. He has a toothpick and other things, but you probably won't use those sorts of things. The nice thing about these types of knives is because they are Swiss Army type knives is that they're very friendly. People kind of think of them as being cute and they're not so threatened by them, and that makes a big difference. So this would be a good choice, I think, and for $1 you're not going to really care if you lose it or not. Now here's another bargain. My wife picked up this particular knife in a clearance bin for $1 at I think a Walmart or a Kmart or something. And this is a keychain knife. It has, again, some other stuff in it, which I can't get out right now, but you can see scissors, for instance. And you would think that this little blade, what could you possibly do with this little blade? Surprisingly, you can do just about anything you need to do with this little blade, with the exception of it wouldn't be a good spreader. So if you're just using this type of a knife with your other utensils, use the back of your spoon to spread that peanut butter or whatever, that cheese on a cracker. That's going to work just fine, and then you still have this little knife.